Hey, millionaire. Have you ever been through a financial hardship and just wished you won the lottery? Winning such a massive amount of money can change anyone's life, allowing you to fulfill all your dreams and projects, but most importantly, recover peace of mind. However, these lucky lottery winners were blessed with great luck that helped them escape the most extreme poverty. In this video, we'll show you 9 homeless people who won the lottery and became rich. But enough talking, let's dive into it. Number 9. Michael Angfors. Getting divorced can't be an easy experience, especially if your divorce comes with a long period of poverty and misery. At 61, Michael Angfors had been homeless for 6 years after losing his business and his wife, leaving him devastated. However, not even poverty and his fall into ruin could stop the spirit of this dreamer of a man. According to an employee of a nearby gas station named Gabby Garcia, Michael was a regular lottery player, even if he didn't win more than $2. Although some people thought he had higher priorities to be spending his money gambling, Michael proved them all wrong, beating all odds and winning an incredible $500,000 thanks to the purchase of one lucky $10 ticket. How would you feel if, after a rough financial patch, you woke up with $500,000 in your bank account? While some people would dream of having money to buy a house or renovate their car, Michael had only one goal in mind: to find his daughter, whom he hadn't seen in more than 20 years. Fortunately, he managed to find her, giving his years of suffering a happy ending. Number 8. Emily Reyes. One story among the luckiest lottery winners stands out above the rest because it happened in the most unlikely place, the infamous Route 66. After finding herself in one of the states with the highest rate of homelessness, mired in a deep addiction to alcohol and drugs, Emily struck a deep chord after landing in prison for stealing to support her habits, an experience that would lead her to make a meaningful change in her life. After being released from a Mario prison, she checked into a homeless women's shelter that allowed her to stay sober and reintegrate into society. However, it wasn't until the day she decided to buy a lottery ticket to get through her 6 months of sobriety that her life changed completely, because on that piece of paper was the ticket that would win her $200,000. Even if she could have used the money to help herself, Emily decided to share her winnings with another woman at the shelter, making her stroke of luck save another life. After, for the first time in her life, the odds turned in her favor. Number 7. Lucky former construction worker. In 2012, in Greenville, South Carolina, a homeless man won $200,000 in a scratch-off lottery game. The winner, who did not want to be identified, said he planned to use the money to support himself and his family. He stated he yelled, jumped up and down, and smiled when he scratched off a $10 ticket that had made him rich. "This will finally put me where I need to be," the man said. The lucky winner used to work in construction, but when things became rough, he moved into a rescue mission and struggled for years to get back on his feet until fortune struck his way. Number 6. Grant Freeman. Grant Freeman decided to move to Las Vegas to give free rein to his desire to gamble money until he found the mythical prize that would help him become a millionaire. Unfortunately, as is often the case with many gamblers who develop an unhealthy addiction, Grant ended up losing all his money and was forced to live on the streets. Despite this, he never gave up, convinced that his luck would change one day forever. After spending his days begging for handouts from tourists and putting every penny he earned into slot machines, his gambling addiction left him even more broke, leading him to hitchhike 40 miles to Nipton, California, the mythical place where the magic would happen. Once in the city, he bought 2 Mega Million lottery tickets, which contained all the luck he had lost in previous years. With only a few pennies, he won $8 on one of them and an incredible $180,000 on the other one. After this big victory, Grant claims to have learned a valuable lesson about gambling after his addiction nearly ended his life. However, his neighbors still occasionally see him buying a lottery ticket or two. If you think these stories have been impressive, then you need to stay until the end, because the following stories are about to get crazier. Number 5. Victor Herrera. As one of the most beautiful places in the United States, Miami is a dream place for many tourists and residents. However, it is hard to believe that a divorced man ended up kicked out of his home in this paradisiacal place during one of the hottest summers. Despite this terrible situation, Victor Herrera managed to move in with his son at his sister's house, where they both settled. Sadly, the small apartment had no air conditioning to cope with the brutal Miami summers. One night, too hot to make it bearable to sleep, Victor went down to the store to buy a bag of ice, but ended up detouring to buy a lottery ticket. Little did Victor know that the short trip to the store would win him an incredible $250,000, which he used to buy a new house. To this day, we have our doubts about whether Victor has decided to buy an air conditioner, because maybe another night, forced to go out and buy more ice, fate will make him the winner of another grand prize. Number 4. Eric from Rahat's Magic. Despite not officially winning the lottery, we can't deny that Eric had one of the greatest strokes of luck a human being can ever experience in life. Eric was a homeless man who became highly popular after appearing on the hit YouTube channel Magic of Rahat, belonging to Rahat Hossein, an American vlogger, prankster, and magician. In a completely selfish gesture, Rahat gifted Eric with a lottery ticket while secretly handing one of the store employees the modest sum of $1,000 so that Eric could experience what it feels like to win the lottery for the first time in his life. Upon learning that he had won the prize, Eric burst into tears and offered to share his winnings with Rahat. The gesture touched the entire YouTube community, leading Rahat's followers to raise a staggering $66,000, which they used to buy Eric a house. Unfortunately, shortly after that, Eric tried to take advantage of the situation, accusing Rahat of stealing his money, so he started blackmailing him into giving him more unless he wanted him to keep talking. As if this wasn't enough, the entire YouTube community turned against Rahat, leading him to go through a severe depression that led him to abandon his channel. A big blow to Eric's luck was also a big blow to Rahat's mental health. Thanks to a YouTube documentary and a video dedicated to debunking the lies, Rahat regained his reputation and is working on his channel again. If you think the end of this story was completely unexpected, keep watching because the following 3 powerful stories will leave you fascinated. Number 3. Laszlo Andrusek. Unlike many other winners, this man managed to win the largest sum of money and become a multi-millionaire. In 2013, Laszlo Andrusek was in extreme debt. Despite overcoming his addiction to alcohol, after 7 years of living on the streets, Laszlo decided to leave it all up to luck, entrusting what little money he had left to spend his last coins on a lottery ticket from a train station on his way to Budapest. And fortune smiled back at him. After the lottery announced the winning numbers, Laszlo became the winner of 636 million Hungarian guilders, the equivalent of $2.5 million US, a figure that allowed him to change his life and leave the tough streets behind. Instead of using the money to buy a large country estate or become the owner of a fancy car, Laszlo and his wife didn't forget the one place that took them in, so they donated most of it to the homeless shelter where he and his wife had been staying for the past few years. After paying off all their debts, money was no longer an issue in their lives, thanks to chance and the belief that someday the law of attraction would give them everything they had been praying for. Number 2. Crystal Nelson. In July 2017, Crystal lived in a friend's truck. She became the winner of the not at all modest sum of $50,000. However, she convinced that that money wouldn't be enough helped her change her life, a negative thought for a person who had been homeless for 5 months until finding the winning numbers. Instead of spending money on a lot of unnecessary things, Crystal decided to use part of the money to buy a new car, using the remaining amount to help her brother pay for his house so that he would never have to go through the ordeal of homelessness. A gesture completely born out of selfless love, which earned him something more important than money, the affection of his loved ones, who supported him during his hardest moment. And finally, for the number 1 spot. Number 1. Dennis Mahurin. Unlike other winners who had been living on the streets for a few months or years, Dennis Mahurin was homeless for far too long. After spending about 25 years living on the streets since 1978, Mahurin decided to use his money to improve her living conditions, visit his son, and even get dental work done. Although his winnings were not that big, $50,000 helped that allowed him to change his life and helped others along the way. What is even more touching about this case, he never forgot the people who helped him all those years. Instead of spending all his money on expensive things, he decided to give $100 to everyone on the street he lived with.
I'm gonna give them each $100.
She even joked that she would save some money for new people who came over to be her new friends after discovering that she had won the lottery. A clear example that teaches us that there is no better person to express gratitude than the one who has gone through the most extreme situations. However, that's not always the case, like we learned with the dumbest lottery winners in history, who collectively lost billions of dollars after hitting riches.